This guest needs no introduction. He is somebody that's been a favorite of mine, as well as a lot of Braves fans throughout the years, and now you can hear him on the broadcast. We had to sit down in part one with Tom Glavine, former Brave. Welcome in, Braves Today, bravestoday.com. Of course, pleased to welcome in the great Tom Glavine, who it depends on, I guess, who you'd ask if we started talking about that All-Star booth, who the great Tom Glavine is, or if it's the great John Smoltz, or if it were Frenchie's idea, he'd probably say he's the best of all y'all out there. But I thought that was an awesome job of you guys trolling him with the Hall of Fame jackets the last broadcast around.
Well, we had to, he brought it on himself when he showed up the first time with his, cute little Georgia high school football Hall of Fame jacket, whatever it was. So it was like, okay, the gauntlet's been thrown down, so we're going to throw it back at you. So I thought it was pretty good.
I'll get into it. Pitching, since that is going to be your forte, any idea of how rotations are going to be handled come playoff time and what we might see as far as anybody maybe even headed to the pen with this Braves team?
Obviously I think you're going to go Max, Spencer, Charlie, Bryce will be your four guys. Sometimes in short series, you might go three guys, but I think that happens much less in today's game than it did sometimes in my game. So I think those four guys will be your guys. And then, sometimes it's not as simple as, all right, well, Max is our number one, Spencer's number two. I think sometimes you have to look at matchups. And if, Spencer, for instance, matches up better than, say, Charlie, then you'd want Spencer to get two starts in a series and try and take advantage of that. I know there were a lot of times in my day that you might have guys, and similar to this situation with the Braves, top three anyway, that any one of those guys can go out there and be your number one, but for whatever reason, you got one guy that pitches better on the road or one guy that pitches better at home, or sometimes, you might take a young guy like Bryce or Spencer and say, hey, you know what? Let's have these guys pitch at home in a friendlier environment, not so crazy, and try and do some of those things. But, I think the good thing for this team and this rotation is all four of those guys are good. They've all had great years. Obviously, I think Max and Spencer would be 1 and 1A, but not a huge separation between the four of them. So I think you'd feel comfortable with any one of them going out there, particularly with that offense.
He's not there yet, but is Spencer one of those guys that could be that get me one guy that like your famous line?
I mean, he certainly has the potential. Look, I mean, I think and having experienced it myself, Spencer's, Bryce is that guy, and Spencer, when you look at Spencer and Max, you're looking at guys that are power pitchers. You look at Bryce, and it's more of a contact guy, and Bryce, or I should say, typically in the postseason, the contact guys have a little bit harder time than the power guys, but. I think, you watch Spencer pitch, and I think anytime he goes out there, it's the potential for there to be a no-hitter, and so there's excitement surrounding that. But, I think he's the kind of guy that, he can go out there and make one run stand up, and I think Max is too. I think both those guys are quite capable of going out there and having those types of games, and that's what it takes in the postseason. It's regardless of how good your regular season is, the postseason's always different, and the separation between the teams is not as great anymore. So you got to be on your game.
How much does it help having two guys behind the plate that are, you got two All-Stars? I mean, getting to throw to two All-Stars has got to do something for a pitcher's confidence.
And look, I think it's a great scenario, right? You've got two guys that handle the pitching staff really well, two guys that can both hit, and there's seemingly no adjustment, so to speak, throwing from one guy to the next, and that's a huge luxury, and I know that even in my day, our starting catcher, let's say Javi, tended to be a little bit more offensive minded. Our backup catchers, so to speak, were the guys who were a little bit more defensive minded. I think both of these guys are very similar. Murph might have a little bit more power than Travis does, but defensively, they're both really good. They both throw the ball really well. So, the running game is a little bit tougher with both of them behind the plate because they throw so well. But I think more than anything, there doesn't seem to be a big adjustment with any of the pitchers throwing from one guy to the next. I think that's pretty seamless, and that's always a huge thing when you're comfortable as a pitcher with either guy behind the plate in terms of how they're going to call your game.
You mentioned running game. Ronald Acuna, he the best player in baseball?
If he's not, I think the only other one in the conversation is Ohtani. I think both those guys are probably 1A, and then everybody else. Obviously you spend a lot of time talking about Ronald and what he can do, and the 5-tool guy, and he can beat you with his bat, with his legs, with his glove, with his arm. And that's a rare thing, right? And I know Frenchie and I have talked about it, and I've heard Frenchie talk about it a lot on air. There are guys in baseball that can do some of the things that he can do, but nobody in baseball can do all of the things he can do. And that's what makes him such a special player. And, he's fun to watch. And it's been fun, this year to kind of watch his progression as a guy that not only has gotten better, but seems to be going about his business a little bit better too.
Well, and at one point in time, now he can't do what Ronald can do on the bases, but MVP candidates, Olsen was in that mix and probably still is if he ends up wrapping up the year with a great season. He hit an abysmal 292 this past month. So everybody was talking about he was down, and we ran the numbers and we were like, 292 is not that bad.
Yeah. No, it's all, you're right. It's all the perception of what people are seeing, right? He had that 2 or 3 week stretch there where it seemingly hit a home run every at bat, right? And I think that's what got him into the MVP conversation. And now all of a sudden he's had and I don't know, because I didn't watch this weekend, but I don't know if he's broken that home run drought. It was, I don't know, 7 or 8 games or something like that.
Didn't.
But so he didn't. So he still got.
He had a couple of doubles though.
But see, that's the thing, right? He can still do some other things. But I think, again, sometimes as a player, you're a victim of your own success, right? And when guys get hot and they're doing crazy special things, well, typically that's not going to last forever, and you're going to level out and you're going to go through some ebbs and flows. And I think anybody who watches this team, listen, I love watching Matt hit. I love what he's done all year long. I think he 100% is in the conversation for the MVP race with all the home runs and the RBIs. But I think all of us who watch this team know he can be pretty streaky and probably one of the streakier hitters in that lineup. So he's going to have some ebbs and flows, particularly with the home run ball, but he can still, to your point, do some other things to hurt you, whether it's base hits or doubles or whatever. So he's still driving runs in even without hitting the home run ball. But I just think he got so hot there for, like I said, 2 or 3 weeks hitting home runs that it's like, you can't, it's humanly impossible to keep that pace up. But hopefully he's gonna kind of get back into the home run swing here as we get down the stretch.
Speaking of down the stretch, LA looming. Those guys are right now. It's just a race for home field advantage. How important is that for the Braves? Because right now, we've said our big thing is we said just win series because everybody wants to talk about the loss in San Francisco to end the series. It's like, well, they won the series. You keep winning series, you're not going to lose home field advantage. Shouldn't mathematically.
But you shouldn't. You shouldn't. But listen, I think anytime you go into a series, your goal, to your point, is to win a series. And if you do that, typically speaking, you're going to have a really good year. And this team has done that. Now, I get that people get disappointed when you have a chance to sweep and things like that. But I can promise you, and I can't tell you why. I can't necessarily explain it other than it's just the law of averages. I don't care who you're playing. It's really hard to sweep a series. It just is, at that level, even the worst teams still have the best players in the world on their roster, and they're still capable of doing things. So on any given day, it could be that team's day, and that's what makes baseball great, right? But it's just tough to sweep the series. It always has been. It always will be. So, it's almost like as a team, you're better off losing the first game of a series and winning the next 2 to win 2 out of 3 versus, losing the third game when you had a chance to sweep, because then everybody focuses on, we had a chance to sweep, we didn't do it. And there's, for some reason, a negative connotation to that, right? You've still won the series, but right. I get that. It's just how fans look at it. But I think from the player standpoint, you're trying to win series. Obviously, if they go into LA and beat the Dodgers in that series, that'll go a long way towards home field advantage. And I think home field advantage is huge. I mean, again, you look at that the year the Braves won the World Series, that home field advantage got flipped, and the Braves, the Braves had home field advantage against the Dodgers, and it made all the difference in the world. And I think home field in baseball is probably a little less of an advantage than maybe some other sports, but don't kid yourself, it's still an advantage, and not having to travel and start on the road is a big deal.
Biggest surprise out of this crew that you guys have seen this year, I think mine would probably be Ozuna, especially abysmal as he started, which he's just been, they threw the numbers up the other day. Just in the last month, he's batted like over 400.
Oh, he's been again stupid hot. I mean, the way he's swinging the bat right now, he's just so locked in. But I would have to look. I think even when you look at Marcell, you figure in a normal year, he's going to do what he's doing. He's going to hit home runs. He's going to drive runs in. He's going to hit. His average is going to be somewhere around where it is, or maybe a little bit higher if he didn't get off to such a bad start. But I think he's a guy that, barring he gets to that end of his career year and things just don't go the way you anticipate them going, he was gonna end up where he is. I think the biggest surprise for me offensively on this team has been Arcia. He's been unbelievable. I mean, I think that coming into the season, I think a lot of people thought that Grissom was going to be the shortstop and Arcia was going to be kind of that utility backup guy, but he's just done a phenomenal job. And he won the job at shortstop. Defensively, he's always been solid. And I know we had some nice years in Milwaukee offensively, but I don't know if anybody nobody anticipated him doing what he's doing offensively and making the All-Star team and all those things. I think we all knew he was going to play defense, right? But I think a lot of us looked at it as, okay, that's going to be maybe the one spot in the lineup where we sacrifice a little bit of offense for some defense, but he's been no sacrifice offensively at all. I mean, he's had a phenomenal year. He seems to rise to the occasion and get big hits a lot. So to me, I think overall he would be probably the biggest surprise in the lineup.
Rosario seems to be recently heating up. Are we about to see, quote unquote, playoff Eddie Rosario?
I mean, let's hope so, right? I mean, he has a knack for the dramatic as well. I don't know why anybody throws him a fastball over the plate to hit, because he doesn't miss many of them. But he's been a great story. And really been a good fit on this team. I mean, I think like I said, he plays defense well enough, and offensively, a lot of power. So a guy you got to certainly worry about in that lineup. But I think he has a flair for the dramatic, and that's something that a lot of guys don't have. They might put up good numbers, but in those tough situations, maybe don't perform as well. But Eddie seems to thrive on those situations, and it's been a lot of fun to watch. But I mean, that's such a big part of. You talk about him, you talk about Arcia, you talk about Michael Harris. I mean, that's what makes this lineup so tough. Is you're getting production out of 7, 8, 9, where a lot of teams aren't, and that separates the Braves from a lot of teams.
I know you got some events coming up. They'd asked me, so I want to make sure you get that plug in. Pepsi and Sam's Club, you guys are going to be involved with here pretty soon.
Yeah, Thursday, McDonough, Georgia, 4:30 to 6 o'clock, I believe it is. I'll be down there hanging out, eating some hot dogs, handing out some Pepsi Zero Sugar. So it'll be a fun, kickoff for Labor Day weekend, a fun end of the summer, I guess, so to speak, right? I mean, everybody loves hot dogs, myself included. So it'll be a good opportunity to get down there, have a good hot dog, have a nice Pepsi Zero Sugar, enjoy the fans, have some fun, talk some baseball, and should be a lot of fun.
That is part one with our sit down with Tom Glavine, all presented by Active Wealth. You can go to annuity360.net to get your book. We'll have part two a bit later on, wherever you get your podcast.